जी कंपेनियन योर स्टोरी में आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मैं हूं कनिका। आज हम आपको मिलवाने वाले हैं एक ऐसी बहादुर औरत से हु सर्वाइव्ड सेक्सुअल ग्रूमिंग, रेप एंड वायलेंस ऑल ऑन द नेम ऑफ इज्जत। उन्हें बचाया जा सकता था, लेकिन इज्जत के नाम पे कई गलत चीज़ों को दबा दिया गया। मैं एक छोटी सी वार्निंग देना चाहती हूँ। 6 बजे हैं, लेकिन अगर बच्चे हमारा ये शो देख रहे हैं या आपके घर में बच्चे हैं, थोड़ा सा डिस्टर्बिंग स्टोरी है, डिस्टर्बिंग कंटेंट है, लेकिन हमारी कोशिश यही है कि हम आपको ऐसी बातें बताएं ताकि अगर आपके आसपास किसी भी लड़की, किसी भी लड़के या बच्चे के साथ कुछ ऐसा गलत हो रहा है, आप उसे रोक सकते हैं। हमारे आज के गेस्ट, जैसे कि मैंने कहा, सनी एंजल है। कौन है सनी, क्या है उनकी स्टोरी? टेक अ लुक।
I was sexually abused when I was 3 years old. I tried to tell my parents, but nobody listened to me. I was groomed when I was 17, raped, tortured and left to die. I'm a survivor of the most horrific torture. Only now I feel the first glimpse of hope and freedom. My scars are now my wings.
सनी, बहुत बहुत वेलकम है आपका जी कंपेनियन पे और हमारे साथ अपनी स्टोरी शेयर करने के लिए। फर्स्ट अप, हैट्स ऑफ टू यू अपनी स्टोरी सब पूरी दुनिया के साथ शेयर करने के लिए, उसे एक किताब में लिखने के लिए। मैं सबसे पहले आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ कि व्हाट इंस्पायर्ड यू, किसने आपको प्रेरणा दी अपनी स्टोरी को इतने सालों के बाद एक किताब में लिखने के लिए? क्योंकि जब आप ऐसा करते हैं तो यू आर रीविजिटिंग एवरी वुंड। टेल अस।
Thank you for having me here as well. What happened was, I thought I'd dealt with it. I thought, you know, I don't have to share with anyone. I thought I could sweep it under the carpet. But when my little girl looked at me and she saw the scars on my back and she said, "Mummy, what is this?" I just started crying and I thought, you know, it's not fair for me to keep sweeping it under the carpet. I have to tell her. So I told her my story and I thought, I'm going to save my daughter, so from anything that could happen to her. So I thought if I could save my daughter, I'd like to save everybody else's daughter too, and break the, you know, this honor nonsense. Really, honor should be saving your children.
Absolutely. Child abuse बहुत कॉमन है, more common than we think. Sunny sadly, unfortunately, encountered it very early in life. देखिए।
I'm born in England. My parents are from India and they moved here when they were 20. My dad was one of the first ones to come here from his family, and he's from a Hindu Punjabi background. Yeah, they had an arranged marriage in India and my mum came here, so I'm the first generation after my dad. And I don't think they actually integrated well when they came over, because they were of the mindset that the streets are paved with gold, and they always referred to India as back home. So once they made the money, they wanted to just go back home. But being brought up in England was very difficult for me personally. Being brought up in Surrey, where there's lots of English people, I didn't actually integrate with other Asian people. So we didn't have aunts and uncles here, we didn't have grandparents here, so I had nobody else to talk to apart from mum and dad and 2 brothers. I was actually treated differently to my brothers. I was taught that girls have to get arranged marriages also, so I wasn't allowed to play with boys' things because girls are treated differently. And at school I was bullied because I was Asian, and at home I was bullied because I was wanting to be like everybody else at school. So I had a very difficult childhood. At school I was taught on how to be equal. And so this was like 30 years ago, at school being taught different things. But at home, the traditional cultural conditioning was very different. When I started to grow up, I realised that the Asian mentality was different to what we were learning in England. And I saw a lot of domestic violence and abuse. I was abused as a child. By a family friend. It started off when I was 3 and then it carried on for several years. How it started was me and my brothers, we were going as a family, and we used to go to a family friend's house, and they were Asian. The parents used to sit down and watch a 3-hour Bollywood movie, and all the children used to play together. He was an older child, an only child, so he was at the ages of 12 to 16 when the abuse was happening. And he would play games like Space Invaders and things with my brothers. And then what he would do was ask me to come to the room. I would always refuse, but he used to say, your brothers won't be allowed to play the game unless you get it for them. Or quite often he would play hide and seek. He'd ask us all to hide, but he would come and find me, and he would lock the room, and he would sexually abuse me and hurt me. Quite often I would come home in bruises, or he'd slap my face, so he would leave marks on my body. Once my brother actually found him. He was a couple of years older than my big brother, and I didn't actually realise what was happening at the time because I didn't have sex education. I didn't know what things were, and I was really, really frightened because I used to call him brother because that was the done thing within Asian communities. You call everyone uncle and auntie, brother and sister. So I was really beginning to get scared of him. He told me that no one would believe me. He told me not to tell anyone. I remember him having a dog, so he would scare me with the dog to instill fear. And he said, you know, you will come back again the following weekend, and he was right. When I tried to tell my mum again, I tried to tell her on several times. I couldn't exactly communicate what had happened and how it happened. I knew that I didn't feel right. I felt what had happened was wrong. And one day when Mum was out with my brothers and I was home alone with Dad, I saw Dad marking paperwork at the table, and I noticed he was marking crosses. So I asked Dad what he was doing, and he said, when something is wrong, you put a cross by it. So when he wasn't looking, I took the pen and I went upstairs to the bathroom and I just stripped myself. And I started putting crosses all over the places on my arms, on my body, on my private area, on my thighs. Everywhere where V had touched me, I'd put crosses. And I remember crying and just digging the pen in everywhere. But I remember being up in the bathroom for such a long time, just wanting to put big crosses everywhere. I don't know who found me or what happened, but it was my way of, as a child, to say this is wrong, what happened to me was wrong, and it was my way of putting it right. The abuse carried on for several years, and as I got older, I kept refusing to go. And Mum would say things like, if you don't go, Dad's not going to love you anymore. So I was stuck in between a rock and a hard place, basically, with Mum knowing that the abuse was taking place. But I appreciate she was stuck also because she didn't want to team up against Dad. But it was the whole honour banner again. And, you know, it was the shame. But it wasn't my shame to carry, it wasn't Mum's shame either. And I know it was a respectful family, but we were respectful too. And things like this shouldn't happen. But I just wanted to be supported, and by having the emotional blackmail of Dad won't love me anymore, it was heartbreaking for me as a very young child to think that I deserved to be abused, or I deserved to be disowned and not loved. It was really hard, and to have that kind of mindset as a young child, I felt really alone.
Sunny, thank you again. आप अपनी story हमारे साथ share कर रहे हैं because it can save a lot of girls' lives. Secondly, I'm sorry our society failed you, and Asian society failed you. I want to ask you something specific. I totally understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand that a lot of time Asian families छुपाना चाहते हैं. They want to do hush-hush crimes against their women क्योंकि उनको लगता है उनकी बदनामी हो रही है. But continuing आपको उस घर में लेके जाना जहाँ आपके साथ गलत हो रहा है, which is a social visit, That's slightly uncomprehendable. Now आपने अपनी इस अपनी बातों में इतने सवाल उठाए हैं. Actually a lot of things that are potentially wrong with our society. So I understand आपके फादर मदर पे डोमेस्टिकली अब्यूज़ करते थे उन्हें, इसलिए उनमें उतनी हिम्मत नहीं थी to talk to challenge your father. लेकिन why do you think she couldn't create a story or do something ताकि आपको उनके घर नहीं जाना पड़े?
At the time I was so young, I didn't understand, but many years later I asked my mum, why didn't you stop it? Why? Because I used to get triggers, I used to get so many nightmares, and she said I couldn't stop it because your dad was drinking, he was a gambler, he was always, there was always a story. But then the truth came out that my dad was doing some sort of business deal with that family, so we had to go every weekend. Mum was controlled by dad, she still is controlled by him, so that's why I changed my name for this. Because I didn't want to shame them further, but also I didn't want to keep quiet because I know a lot of people will benefit from this. Keeping silent and suffering is just not the answer.
Absolutely. Sunny, did your father ever realize क्या हुआ? And जब उन्हें पता चला, did he ever show any kind of support?
No support. With my dad, I've spoken about it even many years later, and he said I can't do anything about it. He said the time has gone now, there's nothing I can do. To me, there's no justice there.
Absolutely.
He said the boy is probably married now, he's happy, why ruin his life? And to me that's shocking.
Absolutely.
Because obviously I still get nightmares. I've had lots of therapy, hypnotherapy, but to me, to hear that from my own father, and he said, well, it's karma, it's kismet, you might have done something wrong in your past life. And to me, that's not enough. My dad said, you didn't pray enough. And I said, Dad, praying is not enough. You need action. I needed my family. At 3 years old, how much was I supposed to pray to not be raped?
Absolutely.
And my dad has no answer for me.
इस बात पे मैं एक बात कहना चाहती हूँ. कई बार लोगों को स्पेशली एशियन सोसाइटी में ये लगता है कि अब जो हो गया उसे तो हम बदल नहीं सकते, इस बारे में नॉइस करेंगे तो हमारी खुद की बदनामी होगी. लेकिन आप एक ज़रूरी बात भूल रहे हैं. एक क्रिमिनल स्पेशली जो who are into assaulting women, raping women, अगर एक बार कोई आवाज़ उठा लेगा उनके खिलाफ तो शायद वो रुक जाए, लेकिन अगर आवाज़ नहीं उठाई तो उनका बिहेवियर कंटिन्यू रहता है. तो हमेशा ये सोच के अगर आपके पास कोई आता है, स्पेशली आपका बच्चा जो ऐसी किसी सिचुएशन में है, तो आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ज़रूर है, क्योंकि ना सिर्फ आप अपने बच्चे को बचाएंगे, आप आने वाले आगे 10 बच्चों को बचाएंगे. Sunny, I truly appreciate you sharing this story with us. एक आपने बहुत इंसाइटफुल बात कही अपनी वीडियो में कि बचपन से ही लड़की, क्योंकि आप लड़की थे घर में, आपको अलग तरीके से ट्रीट किया जाता था. डू यू थिंक जब लोग ऐसा करते हैं बच्ची के साथ, इवन आज की डेट में, somewhere down the line वो उस बच्ची का कॉन्फिडेंस इतनी बुरी तरह से ख़त्म कर रहे हैं ताकि अगर उसके साथ कुछ गलत हो उसमें हिम्मत ही ना हो कुछ बोलने की?
True, because you don't have self-worth, self-esteem, so the minute somebody else gives you attention, they actually make you feel special, make you feel wanted. But at home, you're not treated like a human, you're treated like goods. You like, we'll marry you off. You have to be good material, not damaged goods. So when you're called goods, you don't feel like a human being.
Absolutely.
You need to have some sort of worth. But once they knock that worth out of you, and you're thinking, well, aren't I somebody too? But, especially when you've gone through some kind of trauma, or even if you have a dream, I'd like to do this. You can't do that, you're a girl. Then you have no equality.
Bilkul.
Then that's not fair, And you think, well, these are my parents. They should have the same respect, You should have love for your children. Then otherwise, what's the point?
Thank you, Sunny. Sexual assault, छेड़खानी या सिर्फ रेप नहीं होता. There is a lot of grey and there is a lot of dark in our society. Child ग्रूमिंग, सेक्सुअल ग्रूमिंग एक बहुत बड़ा मसला है हमारी सोसाइटी में. सनी ने वो भी फेस किया है. मैं भी सेक्सुअल ग्रूमिंग के बारे में नहीं जानती थी, पर सुनिए उनकी कहानी.
When I was 17, I was going to college, studying A-levels. I was pretty happy. I had my goals set in mind, and I started to feel quite unsettled, like there was somebody following me. I didn't actually realise at first at what degree, you know, how serious it was. Towards the later end, when I got to 18, the last 3 months of it was very intense. I could actually feel someone very close by next to me. I could see flashing lights. I actually said to my parents that I think someone is actually following me. Mum and Dad said, you know, maybe someone's having a joke with you, don't worry, you know, who's going to follow you? Why would they follow you? You're not famous, you know, no one's going to do that to you. My friend said, look, you're just paranoid, we can't see anyone. Every time I looked round, I couldn't actually see anyone standing out, you know, whoever it was blending into the crowd. But I just had this gut feeling, you know, that there's somebody there. I was very unsettled. So I'd catch the train, and then I learned how to drive. Even while I was driving, parking the car, there was somebody nearby me, almost brushing by me. So one day I went to town on my own, and I was going to meet somebody. This person who was stalking me, he pretended to be Indian and said his name was Raj. And he said he was Hindu like me, Indian Hindu like me, and he said he'd been following me for a whole year. I was really, really shocked. I was scared because, you know, I was only 18. He said he knew my name, and he said lots of things, like he knew where my mum and dad worked. He knew I had 2 brothers. He said he'd been following them as well. So, you know, I was just speechless. He then said that he's going to tell me what to do. I said he's a nutter. I told him to go away. He wasn't listening. He started to grab my wrist. This then escalated. He started to come outside my parents' house. He got my phone number. He started to keep ringing. He threatened to burn their house down while they were all there. He threatened to throw acid on my mum's face. He threatened to kill my brothers and my dad if I didn't do what he said. So he frightened me. I tried to tell my mum and dad that, look, you know, I'm scared. There is somebody following me. I don't know what to do. Mum and dad kept saying, look, we don't believe you. So I didn't know what to do. He was outside the house again, and he said he was going to take me to work. I was really scared. I didn't know if I should call the police, and I thought, well, if my mum and dad don't believe me, how am I going to convince the police? I didn't have a camera phone at that time. I didn't even have a camera, so I couldn't take any pictures of him. This was back in 1997, so 20 years ago. So he started walking me to work. He started walking me around at lunchtime. He was following my every move. He then started getting very controlling. He then started to groom me. I was very, very vulnerable. I started to tell my mum a bit more, but she didn't believe what was happening. He then switched and said that he wasn't called Raj, he was in fact called Khan, and he started to put his Muslim culture on me. He wanted me to wear a hijab and dress the way he wanted me to, and it was very difficult for me. And he changed my name to Sunita Khan at work. He forced me to do a marriage ceremony with him. And he then forced me to leave my parents' home. He brainwashed me into thinking that my parents didn't love me anymore, and that he was the only one there for me. And he groomed me in ways that I could never imagine. Looking back on it now, I don't know how I survived. He took a lot of money from me. He then told me that he was going to rescue me from my parents, that my parents were not good for me because they didn't rescue me from him, and that they didn't want me anymore. I was finding it very, very hard. He kept taking me from my parents' house. The very first time he took me to a hotel for 2 nights, but he didn't touch me at all. He just took my money and left me on the hotel on my own. And my parents, when they rang for me and he took me back to my parents' house, I told them that he hadn't touched me, but they didn't believe me. And that was my breaking point, because even though he hadn't touched me, he gained my trust and he wanted to dishonour me in front of my parents' eyes, so they would disown me and leave me and not help me, whereas he would gain my trust. And I think that was the pivotal moment, because after that, what happened was absolutely horrendous.
Sunny, help us understand, ऐसा कोई किसी को कैसे इतना कंट्रोल कर सकता है कि उससे सब कुछ करवाए, सरनेम चेंज कराए, ज़बरदस्ती शादी कराए? ऐसी कौन सी सिचुएशंस होती हैं where someone becomes susceptible to all this?
It can happen so easily, so fast. I thought I was a very strong person, and at 17, 18, when the grooming was happening, I didn't see it coming. It just so fast, first it was the whole grooming is when someone says to you, you're a nice person, you're special. It's like love bombing. When someone's being really kind to you, then all of a sudden they just switch so fast and they start controlling your money, your bank account, start controlling when you can eat, when you can go to the toilet, who your friends are. They start cutting you off from friends, family. Then they start controlling what you wear. They can force you to do anything. I mean, he forced me to commit crime, so I ended up with a criminal record. They can force you to do anything. It can happen so fast, but they pick on vulnerable people. It can start like with bullying in schools, But I was already vulnerable because of my child abuse. But when I was calling out for help with the police or with my family, because nobody was believing me, and because I was at home and then I kept going back to him, then I was going back to home, back and forwards, it was hard for me to explain what was actually happening. Then my parents wouldn't believe me, and then I kept going back to him because he made me feel safe at some time. But then after the rape, I didn't know where to go. I just didn't know what to do.
ग्रूमिंग बहुत ही पेचीदा मसला है. छोटे से ब्रेक का वक्त है, लेकिन जैसे ही वापस आएंगे विल कंटिन्यू अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि कैसे सनी की ज़िंदगी ख़राब की गई इस ग्रूमिंग, इस प्रीडेटर की वजह से, और कैसे आप अपने बच्चों को, अपने परिवार को इस प्रॉब्लम से बचा सकते हैं. स्टे राइट देयर, विल सी यू शॉर्टली.